May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable unto thee, O Lord. Amen. Please be seated. So this morning, I brought a Christmas cactus with me. I love this little plant, especially this year. It's just been fascinating to watch it come into bloom. And I know I have annoyed my wife, Madeline, with all of my questions and observations. Were there white flowers on this thing last year? Oh, wait, look, a new bud. Hey, come here, check it out. There's like 5 layers of petals on this thing. It is just so wonderfully Advent to wait and to watch with this little plant. I really enjoy not being an actor, just being an observer, watching this dance of life play out. I've thoroughly enjoyed just witnessing the beauty of the incarnation blossom in front of me. And it's this same witnessing spirit that shows up in our scriptures today. Our epistle reading, our New Testament reading, our letter this week is from James. Every other week in Advent, we get Paul calling the Romans to action. But this week, this waiting and watching and witnessing week, we hear James calling us to be patient. And not just any kind of patience, but the patience of a farmer. Now, y'all, I am no farmer. I am barely a gardener, but I do share a farmer's tender, hopeful, joyful patience. This quality of patience that James is getting at is not the hospital waiting room patience. It's not the tire shop patience. It's not stay tuned for your commercial break patience. It is not a patience to be endured. It is a patience to be enjoyed. Another place we see this joyful patience is in the works of many nature writers. Advent is my favorite time of the year to read Aldo Leopold's classic, A Sand County Almanac. It's this little text that Leopold observes and reflects on how a little chunk of land in Wisconsin changes, how it changes through the seasons, how it changes through the years, how it changes through the decades. And now that I say that out loud, it sounds terribly boring. But I promise you, there is a beauty and a joy in that watching that totally captures the season of Advent. And if you're looking for something a little bit closer to home, I would commend to you our own Susan Hansen's book, Icons of Grace and Loss. In particular, she has an essay in there called Instructed by a Seed, in which she has that same quality of patience bubbling up in her words. Words of watchful waiting, of relinquishing control, of making space for something you don't understand, and then adoring what shows up. Come, let us adore them, seeds and cactuses. Come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. There's this connection between creation and Christ, these two incarnations. And there are two incarnations in our scriptures. The first incarnation is how all of creation comes into being through Christ. We hear that in Genesis, and we hear it most clearly in the Gospel of John. And then the second incarnation is when Christ puts on creation, puts on humanity, comes and walks amongst us. And we hear that story in Matthew and Luke. And so both of these incarnation stories play out before us this time of year and are worth our adoration. It is this spirit of watchful waiting, of joyful witnessing that Jesus commends to John the Baptist's disciple. In our gospel reading today, they come and say, how are we supposed to recognize this Messiah? And Jesus' response is, what have you seen? What have you heard these last 2 or 3 days, these last few weeks? You have seen the blind receive sight. You have seen the lame walk. You have heard about lepers being cleansed and the deaf receiving their hearing. You have heard about the dead being raised, and you have seen the poor have the good news brought to them. This spirit of awareness of where the Messiah is working in the world. Jesus continues to ask that question to us. Where have you seen new life break out of death? Where have you heard about healings and resurrections in our community? And if you can't come to an answer right away, that's okay. Take this week. Spend time keeping watch with those who work or watch or weep in our midst. This season of Advent is a time to take a breather, put aside the planning and the doing, and keep watch like a farmer. Adore both incarnations as they play out before us. Be aware of how the Messiah works in our community, in our church, and in our homes. And when Christmas morning comes, come let us adore them. Seeds and cactuses and pageants. Come let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Amen.